Hey guys, welcome to the Artisan channel, and today I'm going to attempt to build a very cheap retro emulation handheld device where you can play your childhood memory games and all that good stuff in this package of a controller, Bluetooth controller, and a cheap smartphone. Now, I got this smartphone for 27 bucks. It is a Sony Xperia Z5, and I got it very cheap. It is secondhand, of course, but the secret behind it being so cheap is the fact that it is a locked smartphone in terms of cellular connectivity. This does not hinder the fact that it has a Snapdragon 810 and 3 gigabytes of RAM, which is plenty to play some awesome PSP and 64 NDS and Dreamcast games. It is on par with the GPD XD Plus and will kick any Anbernic RG350 ass. Now, I paired it up with the Ipega Red Knight Upgraded Edition. I chose this controller because it has an interesting feature with NDS games where you can just put your phone into portrait mode and it will clip on and you can play NDS games without a problem. So this is good for retro games, and I tested it out already, but I bought another one, which was the upgraded edition, the S edition, and we're going to test it out. We're going to unbox it and then pair it up with the phone and then get into some emulation, and that would be a wrap. Now, I hope that you guys will like the video and subscribe to the channel because only 2% of my viewers are subscribed, and any help would be appreciated. Now let's get into the unboxing. So the box contains the user manual, the actual controller, and a charging cable, as well as a wrist strap. Now let's pair this up with my phone and then get into some retro emulation. So let's turn on the controller and let's go into settings and then Bluetooth. And then we hold in the X button and the home button. It will detect it. We pair it, and then it is paired into retro emulation X input mode. Now, if you want to pair it into Call of Duty and PUBG mode for PUBG and Call of Duty gameplay, you hold in A and home button, and you'll need an application for that to map the buttons to the screen. It worked just fine. I tested it out on my OnePlus 7 Pro, and it worked just fine with this controller, just to know. It is worth mentioning that this phone has Android version 7.1.1, and also a thing worth mentioning is that there are LEDs inside the buttons, which is very nice. And it has all the button clicks, even L3 and R3 and L2, R2, all that buttons. There's nothing missing, so you can even stream from your PC without a problem. So an interesting fact about this smartphone is the fact that it has two front-firing speakers. So it is not muffled or hindered in any way. Sounds quite good. This is Naruto Ultimate Ninja Heroes 3 for the PSP emulator using PPSSPP. This here is Mario 64 DS for the Drastic emulator, and as I said, you can clip this controller onto your phone just like this and then play DS games in the way they're supposed to be played. Now in this game you can just use your analog stick instead of the D-pad, which was normally how you're supposed to play the game, and it feels a lot better. This here is Sonic Adventure for the Dreamcast using the Redream emulator. All the controls were pre-mapped, so that is quite handy. This is the Zelda Ocarina of Time randomizer for Nintendo 64 using the Mupen 64 Plus emulator. Of course, as you might expect, it runs quite well since it's an N64 emulator for Android. This, of course, is Crash Bandicoot for the PlayStation 1 running on the EPSXe emulator for the Android platform. Of course, this phone has more than enough power to run these games, so it doesn't come as a surprise that it's able to run all these. It's impressive how something this cheap can still run all these awesome emulators and all those childhood memories. This is Super Mario Bros. 3 for the Game Boy Advance, and it is running on the My Boy emulator. If you're wondering why I'm not using RetroArch, is because RetroArch has some issues on a couple of Android devices, including this one. So, and I prefer to use my bought emulators anyways, because they run very well anyways, and I'm used to them. Now, there is a minute amount of input lag that this Bluetooth controller has. It's not a big issue, but it is a little bit noticeable, only in this game, because I'm very used to how fast it goes. So that is it for the emulation showcasing. I will go over the emulators that I have used for all these systems that I have tested out. Some of them I didn't show because there is no point. They already work perfectly, and just for the length of the video I have to cut it short. The Dreamcast emulator, I used Redream for it. SNES, I used SNES 9X EX Plus. For the Game Boy Advance, I used My Boy, and for the Game Boy Color and Game Boy, I used My Old Boy. Drastic for Nintendo DS, PPSS PP for PSP, PS1 I used EPSXe, Mupen 64 Plus FZ for Nintendo 64, and the NES.emu emulator for NES. Now I stream using the PS app, PlayStation app for streaming off of your PlayStation 4. It detects 5 GHz Wi-Fi, so that is good for streaming as well. I also use Moonlight for my gaming rig. So you can also play all the latest titles on your phone, but you'll have a double latency of the controller and the Wi-Fi. Now, I am going to release soon a video of how to make a DIY solution to the input lag of Bluetooth, so you can bypass Bluetooth entirely and then hardwire the controller to your phone. Not on this type of controller, but on a regular controller with a clip on top. Now, if you want to see that, like the video, subscribe, and stay tuned. So as for my verdict on this controller, it feels good in my hands. The buttons are contact pads and feel nice. They feel very good. The D-pad, very surprisingly, feels very good as well. But the only gripe that I have with this controller is the dead zones on the analog stick and how the analog stick moves. You just can see that there are two axes when you move them around. It might not be a big issue for some of you guys, but I personally didn't like it that much. So compared to the last model of this one, it didn't improve in that way. And for that reason, I will suggest that you get the Saitake 7007F or X model. These have Nintendo Switch analog sticks, which have very good dead zones and stuff like that, and it is quite good compared to this controller as well. So that's about it for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like, subscribe, stay tuned. Tell me what you think in the comments down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.